So guys, we'll be continuing with the discussion on compute services in this tutorial, and we have covered so far the networking options provided by AWS, the storage option provided by AWS. Now we will be studying about the compute services, whether it is server computing or serverless computing. So we'll be talking about Amazon EC2. What is Amazon EC2? What are the uses? What are the different options that are available in EC2? And what is AWS Marketplace, and how we can configure virtual servers, right? And then we will be moving on to AWS Lambda as a serverless computing service provided by AWS. And we just have to configure the code, and we can run the code as and when required. No need to provision servers when we are using AWS Lambda. So we'll definitely be discussing that. Now, the very first thing that we should be clear about is what is the advantage that AWS provides in contradiction to the traditional data centers that we used to have, and what benefits we have, when we talk about provisioning of servers in using EC2 service, right? So let me open up some presentation over here. We should understand, like, whenever we are talking about compute services, we are talking about a machine that is capable to run your code, to run your application, but it is on the cloud. It is a virtual server. So the power of virtualization is exploited by AWS compute services, right? Where we can provision the server in accordance with the demand, in accordance with the load, right? So we can achieve that agility where we can provision additional servers, additional EC2 instances, depending upon the load, the traffic that is coming to our applications, right? While this is a very difficult and a very time consuming process, if we talk about traditional data centers, where it may take up to days also if we have to provision additional servers, right? Additional hardware we're talking about. But this is not the case with AWS. It is a task that is completed within minutes. We can configure additional servers, right? And that is what the advantage we have when we are making use of AWS compute services. So a very basic thing you can see on my screen here, what goes into a machine. If I'm talking about a laptop on which I'm presenting this discussion, right? It is having a motherboard, it is having some kind of processing capacity, right? Some, we call it as CPU, isn't it? It has some Ethernet cards that enable my laptop to interact over the network, right? Then there are hard drives that helps me to store information. Then there is RAM, right? And a lot of other components you can see, right? And then important part is I have an operating system, right, which is Windows, to work, right, to run my applications, right? I'm running, I'm recording a session on Windows 10 system, right? So operating system is helping. So operating system, some processing power we need, right? RAM we need, then we need Ethernet cards, right? So, and then we have some we have hard drive, to provision the storage capacity. So these all ingredients, can be provisioned, can be configured, right, on AWS EC2 management console, right? If I will briefly talk about EC2 first over here, this is just an introductory session to the EC2. So this is the compute service that I'm talking about over here. So I'm just trying to establish some analogy uh, that you know. So although I've not configured any instance, but let's say if I want to launch an instance, right? So what I'm doing here is I am basically launching a machine, a server, right? So over here I can see Amazon machine images, it is nothing but the kind of operating system that I want my server to run on, right? As you can see over here, Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux is there, Amazon Linux, Ubuntu server is there, right? Then we have Windows server as well, right? So we can choose from these operating systems to configure our server. Then I can create my own custom AMIs, right? Although I've not created, so but yes, definitely I can create it. Then I have AWS Marketplace also, which is nothing. It is like additional set of application software we get along with the operating system, and there are a lot of options to choose from, right? And we will discuss in detail anyway. And then we have community mi, which are kind of a free options we have over here, right? And it is just a plain operating system that we can see over here that we can select to configure our server, right? So this was introduction to EC2, and this is EC2 management console. As you can see, EC2 dashboard is there. There is a list of template, launch template. We'll discuss about instances, what are reserved instances, what are spot instances, what are dedicated instances, right? So and what are the storage options, as you can see over here. Elastic block stores, it is equivalent of hard disk drives that we were talking earlier, right? We have volumes, right? We can take snapshots. And then a security aspect is the key ingredient, right? If you want to control your server from the attacks, external attacks, we need to configure security groups. And this is just in correlation with the discussion we had on VPC, right? Where we were, so because ultimately our EC2 instance will be placed in a VPC and in a subnet, right? And these security groups, right, will come into play definitely, right? So this was the introduction of EC2, and we will be elaborating on the core concept of Amazon EC2 Compute, Elastic Cloud Compute Service in the coming sessions. Thank you.